Chapter 17. He didn't mind the physical work. It kept his body limber and kept him busy, like days in the shooting shed. But it meant his mind was free to roam, and roam it did, daydreaming about his life with Fleur and whether she was thinking along the same lines. He reckoned they'd make a great couple. Would she agree? She was a force unto herself and certainly didn't need a man, but her kisses, she meant them, he was sure, and he began having ideas about how to help her realize her dreams while realizing his own. He couldn't wait to see her again at dinner the following night and to meet his father. Charlie had suggested a beer before closing time. Tom hadn't really wanted an ale this evening because he planned to visit his mother's grave, but in the spirit of being sociable he agreed to one, and that's all they had. After leaving Charlie outside the pub, Tom had begun striding up the road towards the hotel, intending to wash up first, but it was getting late, so he walked onwards towards the Cheltenham cemetery. Charlie had given him directions. Distantly he thought he heard voices and checked behind him, but apart from a couple of workers who looked to be making for the nearest pub and the usual thin traffic for a Monday evening, he couldn't see anyone or anything out of place. Weariness came over him, but it washed over him on a happy wave of good feelings he hadn't felt in a long time, not since childhood. That was arresting. Had he begun unhappy all those years? Probably not unhappy, he decided, but perhaps he had been moving through his days in a neutral gear, neither loving life nor hating it, but coasting through it, trying not to create any upheaval for himself. It suddenly felt as though he'd been avoiding life. This new mindset prompted the most pleasant of sensation, which he suspected came out of the delicious prospect of seeing and kissing Fleur again. It was no small thing to carry a torch for someone over 2 decades, believing you'd never see them again. He remembered that first kiss from a precocious 8-year-old that had startled him, and laughed quietly to himself at her claim that he'd wiped his lips on his sleeve. To have met her again and discover the fondness that had existed all those years ago was shared. He had become so lost in his thoughts that he paid insufficient heed to the animal instincts telling him to beware. His intuition knew he was being followed by hunters who saw him as prey. Those hunters were moving in a pack, and they dragged him into a small laneway once he left Port Road and cut into High Street, which skirted the cemetery. Bless me, two of his attackers hauled him to his feet, and he saw Jimmy Collins' face stretch into an angry snarl. "You bastard, stole my girl." "You don't deserve to have Fleur in your arm, ever," Tom thought, "and you'd have to kill me to stop me stepping in your way." Tom laughed despite knowing it was unwise. He won another fist in the ribs for that, and felt something give. He began coughing and dragging in air. Although he was outnumbered and outmuscled, he would have loathed himself if he didn't speak up. "Do you really think I stole her, Jimmy?" He nearly vomited, but realized he had little or nothing to bring up. He gagged and coughed again. Kept talking. "Or was Fleur never actually your girl?" he panted. "Perhaps she was just walking away from the ugly bugger she'd been forced to step out with by her bullying stepmother at home. Or he'd pay for that, he knew, but he enjoyed the moment as Jimmy's eyes widened in the dim light from distant street lights and the moon as it emerged from a cloud. Jimmy didn't like being mocked in front of the two apes alongside him, still holding Tom on each side. As they laughed, he rained down more blows, and the blokes had to let go. It allowed Tom to curl into a fetal position and protect himself as his attacker laid into him with his boots. "Enough, Jimmy, all right," one said. "I haven't got started, Brian," Jimmy said, sounding breathless. "Pick him up." "Nah, pick him up yourself, Jimbo," his mate said. "He's taken enough, don't you think, Dunno?" Tom had taken the precaution of becoming still as he lay face down. Maybe that believe he was unconscious and leave. Then one called Don joined in. "Yeah, you made your point, Jimmy. He looks dead. He's muscling in on my patch, lads. I'm going to marry her." "Yeah, well," Brian, the less amused and more reasonable bloke, said, She didn't look all that interested at the dance, mate." Don laughed. He sounded like a donkey bray. "Good luck with that, Jimmy. We told you she's too high and mighty for you. My dad and I are going to business with her mother. Once the wedding's done." "He's not. I can't have this country bumpkin getting in my way." "Well, he's not in your way. He doesn't even look alive." "Have you killed him, Jimmy?" Don asked, giving a fresh spray of laughter, although it now had a nervous quality to it. "No, but I like to his breathing look." Tom was aware pausing to scrutinize him. He kept his eyes shut, mouth slightly agape, pleased he was dribbling and hoping it was blood. Brian tutted. He looks very bloody. Good, Coghlan sneered. Let's go, Jimmy, Brian urged. I'm not getting caught up in this. Yeah, the donkey said. You can buy us a beer. Tom anticipated it, but hoped it wouldn't come. He hoped in vain. Jimmy's heavy booted foot caught his chin and snapped his head back. He might have gestured the blow as he connected with his jaw, but nothing else. Tom now tried to move and gave a soft moan as the pain shot through him again, and his world went quiet and dark. Chapter 18. Fleur spent a restless night getting up before sunrise, not waiting for breakfast, but leaving a message for her father that she would see him later. No pressing tasks and no jobs on today, to my knowledge. I'll be back soon, off to fetch the oysters for your meal, among other errands. Fleur X. She wasn't trying to be mysterious, but she didn't know how to explain what she was up to. On paper, it would sound as though she was a jilted date stalking the man who let her down. If her father had been up, she would have explained face to face that she was genuinely concerned about Tom, and that she knew in her heart he would never have let her family down without good reason. She needed to know that reason because she had a bad feeling about it. At the wool store, she received the same frustrating and vague remarks at the pub. A man called Charlie Hunter introduced himself, looking almost appalled to see a well-attired woman arrive into the vast, busy space. Madam, when a woman arrives at the shearing shed, do you know what we say? He had 10 years on her, with a pleasant face and a charming way about him. I don't, she replied, going along with him. Someone will remember the phrase, ducks on the pond. Is that so? She grinned. Am I a duck? It's meant to be polite, he said, grinning back. Everyone in the shed is immediately warned to be on their best behaviour. To be honest, it's very unusual for a woman to come here. Am I really that frightening? He laughed. Quite opposite. You're very lovely, and I would hate for you to be offended by the language or behaviour that working men sometimes, well, you understand. I do, and I'm more, thank you. But I shan't take much of anyone's time, Mr. Hunter. I'm Fleur Appleby, she said, holding out her hand, which he gently shook. Call me Charlie. She couldn't help but pause and take in a sweeping glance of the frenetic activity and noise. I've lived here all my life and never seen inside the wool stores. All those bales. Here, walk a little with me. Let me show you. He inhaled. What do you smell? Fleur felt impatient, but knowing she needed his help, she again went along with his generous manner, knowing he was being polite. An earthy smell, she said, frowning. Not unpleasant. I've never been to a sheep farm, not farm, Miss Apple, they're called sheep stations. Comes from the military term, I reckon, but that's a guess, and earthy is right. You're smelling the lanolin, which is the grease from the wool. Ah, she sighed, understanding. It's enormous, she remarked. So impressive. All the wool from South Australia passes through here to its next destination. Most of this will be loaded into ships bound for Europe. How exciting, and now I'm very busy, so I mustn't take up your time. Fleur demurred, hoping she was being just unsubtle enough. How can I help? I'm looking for someone. Tom Cutler, would you know him by any chance? Tom, yes, I know him. He didn't turn up for work this morning or yesterday. Fleur's inner chill turned icy as he looked back at her puzzled. I don't know him all that well, but you take a measure of a man. I doubt it's his way to let people down, not without reason. She nodded. I agree. Tom's a friend of mine, she said. We had dinner date yesterday. He didn't waste any time then. At her surprise, he added, you were at the dance. She recalled him now on the dance floor, winking at Tom. Oh, that's why you're very familiar. You went together. He nodded. He took some persuading to attend, but once there, he couldn't take his eyes off you. And why would he? You were easily the prettiest girl in the room, and who could resist Tom's country charms? He chuckled, grinning again. She wanted to say, clearly not me, but she kept her smile wild in return. He was expected last night in my family home, but Tom didn't turn up. Charlie's smile faded and a frown deepened. Oh, right. We worked together Monday. He seemed to have quite a skip in his step, to be honest, although he wouldn't explain why. He winked. I could tell he was happy. It must have been you, Miss Appleby. She felt herself blush. Call me Fleur, please. He shrugged. He seemed perfectly normal. As I say, chirpy. He didn't say anything about he stayed with you, but Tom's not one for shooting his mouth off. I'm sure you've discovered. He did mention that he needed to find more permanent lodgings, but it really wasn't a problem yet for him. He'd had a good day's work as far as I know, and I even persuaded him to have a beer together. You did? What time was this? Said Charlie, shrugged. We parted comfortably before the 6 o'clock swill time. I remember that. We just had a small one, only time for a few swallows after a big day here, and nothing. He headed up Port Road. I went back towards Semaphore. Charlie looked beyond her, his gaze narrowing in thought. Actually, yes. We recognised a couple of blokes in the pub from the dance, and I'm just realising now that I see you standing here, but I think they were fellows from your party. Jimmy Coughlin, she said, startled. I wouldn't know their names. Tom recognised one of them, but nothing was said. They weren't paying us any attention, and we weren't paying them any. He just casually mentioned they were in the pub as we left. How many were there? I really don't know. Flirt, perhaps 3. Charlie opened his palms. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that Jimmy Collins is a jealous, dodgy, vicious. Oh, well, steady now. But Fleur was up as she imagined a scenario that would have led to Tom's disappearance that involved a trio of cowards, and one of them was with a grudge to settle. Fleur wanted to go straight to the Coughlins, but she calmly thanked Charlie for the information, then walked back to the Prince of Wales pub to purchase 1 dozen fresh Covent-Bay oysters for her father's dinner. She returned home briefly, giving them to Nan. You better let Irma know I'll fetch them, Flo said, but didn't tell Nan where she was going when the woman asked back out. I know they ran, but was all she was prepared to share. Flo took a trap and changed her trolley bus at Black Diamond Corner to make her way to Torranceville, counting her blessing that the Appleby's had no debt to pick up or prepared today or tomorrow. That could change her course, but for now she felt fortunate to have the time to make her way to the furniture workshop known as Coughlin's. Outside, Bert Coughlin was inspecting a series of producers set out on small plates. Miss Appleby, this is a surprise, he said, taking a long suck on his cigarette. Flo gave him a polite smile. I'm here to see Jimmy, Mr. Coughlin. Hope you're going to be a bit kinder to the lad. I was led to believe you would be marrying my son. He is not very good with the girls, but I'll work him hard and he'll do us proud. What a fine partnership that would be, the Coughlin Applebys. You were led wrongly, I'm afraid. Irma should never have given any such assurance. She's not my mother and she's not my keeper. You're a very headstrong young woman, aren't you? Phil nodded. Yet another reason to cross me off Jimmy's list, Miss Cullen. We really aren't suited, and yet he's quite struck by you. I didn't have that impression the other night. He was rather unpleasant, actually, Miss Collins. May I be honest with you, please? Go ahead, he offered, taking another drag and blinking as a flick of tobacco ember flew from his homemade cigarette. Rather dangerous to smoking around all this timber shaving, she remarked. He frowned. What do you have to say, Miss Appleby? I don't have all day. No, and I'm glad we're at this point of truth. I have no intention of marrying your son. I really don't suit Jimmy. He did a nice thing in taking me out, but we were unhappy together, she said, trying to put a spin on it so Colton didn't feel that she was here to criticize his son. We like the idea of our families being joined. That may be so for you and for Emma, but neither my father nor I believe Jimmy and I would make a good partnership in any sense of the word. May I see him, please? Why, Elsie got nothing nice to say to him. He was all right, but Fleur couldn't let him know that. I want to be fair, and I think it's only right that I say it to his face. I thought you already had, Mr. Coughlin. Is there a reason I can't see Jimmy? Because I can hear his voice over the lathe, and I can pick out his shape in the shadow back there. Coughlin's expression twisted. She suspected exactly why the father was patching his son. Do you know the difference between a casket and a coffin, Miss Appleby? She was caught slightly off guard by his odd question. Yes, I do. It was tempting to explain that the word coffin came from the French coffin or cradle, and before that coffin, basket. But that would be deliberately provocative. The casket is usually hinged and preferable for bodies that had to be viewed. Very good, he said, clearly trying not to bristle, and by contrast, coffins are not usually required to be opened, so they need no additional furniture like the brass fitting. They also tend to be curved or slanted from the shoulders rather than the straight, she said, helplessly wanting the last word. She frowned. Why do you ask? Because, Miss Appleby, you're going to have to know your coffin's the casket, your beers and funeral boxes for when you have to find your new supplier. She blinked with understanding. I see, a threat. Not at all, just business. Miss Appleby, don't take it personally. I shan't, be assured, Mr. Coughlin. I'm very well educated in all facets of undertaking, especially the carpentry. He smirked. We had a good thing going between the Coughlins and Applebys, but now you'll need to take your chances. I gather the next closest workshop is on the other side of Adelaide. You'll be waiting long for your orders and competing with all those pushy city firms for your carpentry. Fleur nodded. That's the way it has to be, she said. Her words firm. She was glad her voice held up, but she was thinking inside. What would she say to her father? Right now you can speak to my son, Jimmy, he yelled. Get out here, he stared coolly at Fleur while they waited for Jimmy to appear. He sauntered up, hands deep in his pockets. Yeah, you called, he said to his father. Miss Applewood's here. She has something to say to you. Is that right? I didn't think we had anything more to say, he remarked. It's true, Person. Our words were more than harsh enough the other evening, but as business colleagues, I thought I should make some step towards a conciliatory conversation. That was the wrong word. She realized as she saw him confused. She hurried. You deserve an apology, she said, watching his eyes widen with a surprise. There are so many reasons we're not suited to marriage, and I just wanted to say I regret that our exchange was so harsh. He gave a chuckle. You're strange, Fleur. Fleur shrugged. I've been called worse. Anyway, Jimmy, your father has just allowed to me the new arrangement, so I'll say goodbye and wish you well. She took several steps forward and held her hand. He shifted awkwardly, not removing his hands from his pockets to remain in place. Hand outstretched now, he was concerned. She watched the Coglins exchange a glance. We'll get on with it, glad, Jimmy's father rasped with disgust, flicking away the stub of cigarette into the nearby bushes. Come on, Jimmy, Fleur thought, smiling slowly. Shake my hand. Slowly, reluctantly, Jimmy removed his right hand from his pocket. He reached for hers, but she pulled it back. She could see all the knuckles were bruised. You coward. How many of you did it take, Jimmy? What are you talking about? She nodded at his battered knuckles. I know you got them the way by beating Tom Catchlove in a cowardly game. He shrugged, clearly realizing there was no point in denying. Had it coming, did he? Because he asked me to dance. I was the one who said yes. I was the one who asked him to take me home. I was the one who was yearning for anyone but you to dance with. She hurdled him. Where is he? How should I know? Where was he when you set upon him? He gave the careless stroke at the cemetery. He's obviously like you, prefers the dead. He probably fidget like you as well as that. At that, he raised his gaze to hers. She blinked once at him and looked away as if dismissing him. He wasn't worth talking to any further, so she cut a scathing look towards his father. You can both go to hell. Don't ever come back to Appleby's looking for work. Fleur turned on her heel and, with her head high, walked away from the coffin makers for good. She'd have some explaining to do to her father, but the feeling of taking control felt powerful, like a moment to remember. Thanks for listening.